she was more than a queen. She was the last symbol of ancient Egypt's greatness. A ruler, a lover, a warrior, and a mystery wrapped in beauty, intelligence, and fierce ambition. This is the story of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, and the secret alliance that shook the foundations of two empires. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC in Alexandria. She belonged to the Ptolemaic Dynasty, Greek rulers who had ruled Egypt since the time of Alexander the Great. But Cleopatra was different. Unlike her ancestors, she embraced the Egyptian language, culture, and gods. She wanted to be seen not just as a foreign ruler but as a true Egyptian queen. From a young age, Cleopatra proved herself to be intelligent, persuasive, and politically sharp. She spoke at least 7 languages, studied science, philosophy, and diplomacy. But her kingdom was in danger. Rome was growing in power, and Egypt was losing its independence. When her father died, Cleopatra became quarreler with her younger brother. But palace politics were brutal. She was soon pushed out of power and forced into exile. It seemed her reign was over, until fate stepped in. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, chasing his rival, Pompey. Cleopatra saw a chance to reclaim her throne. And so began one of the most legendary moments in history. She had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace hidden inside a rolled-up carpet. When Caesar unwrapped it, out came Cleopatra, dazzling and bold. Caesar was impressed not just by her beauty, but by her confidence and intelligence. The two formed an alliance, personal and political. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra regained her crown. Together, they had a son named Caesarion. For a moment, Egypt was secure. But back in Rome, Caesar's growing power led to his assassination. Now alone again, Cleopatra returned to Egypt. But she knew that the next power in Rome was rising. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal friend and general. When Antony called her to meet him in 41 BC, she did not disappoint. Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus on a golden ship, dressed as the goddess Isis. Perfume filled the air, music played, and her presence captivated Antony. It wasn't just seduction, it was strategy. The two became lovers and partners in power. Cleopatra promised Antony wealth and troops. Antony offered her protection and influence in Rome. But this time, their enemies were watching. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, saw their alliance as a threat. War was inevitable. Cleopatra and Antony formed a secret political pact. They aimed to rule the Antony from Rome, Cleopatra from Egypt. They married in Egyptian tradition and declared Caesarion as Caesar's true son and heir. To Octavian, this was treason. In 31 BC, war broke out. The famous Battle of Actium became the turning point. Octavian's forces defeated Antony and Cleopatra's navy. Defeated and cornered, they fled to Egypt. 1 year later, Octavian invaded. Mark Antony, wrongly believing Cleopatra had taken her own life, fell on his sword. When Cleopatra found him dying, she held him in her arms. Soon after, she too chose death, most believed by the bite of a cobra. With her death, 3,000 years of pharaohs came to an end. Egypt became a Roman province. But Cleopatra's legend lived on. Her life was a delicate dance between love and war, power and politics, beauty and brilliance. She was the last pharaoh, and her secret alliance nearly rewrote history.